Session 4 of Optimal Outcome Precepting, Strategies for Bringing Out the Best in Every Student. I'm Dr. Daniel Brown, Professor of Pharmacy Practice and Director of Faculty Development at Palm Beach Atlantic University in West Palm Beach. I'm also a visiting professor at Taipei Medical University. The previous sessions I've been showing you slides from West Palm Beach. Now I'd like to show you a different part of the United States, Sedona, Arizona, which happens to be the place that I like to take vacations with my wife. There are many areas of the United States, and Sedona, Arizona is probably the most beautiful area of the country with beautiful red rock mountains, and that's where we most like to vacation. I'd also like to share some photos with you of my pets. This is my black Labrador mix named Lloyd and our golden retriever named Lacey. I show you my two dogs because one of the subjects that I'm going to discuss today are the principles of dog training, because ironically enough, the principles of dog training also apply to influencing human behavior, and those principles can be applied to interacting with our students to improve their performance. I should also include my cat, since we have 7 cats. This is just one representative. This is Snowman, who pretty much sleeps all day. But the dogs have undergone some training that I will discuss with you as we go along. Flashback to our super preceptor talk that originated this series, the 6 steps to becoming a super preceptor. In this session, we're going to explore the 6th step of being a super preceptor, which is inspiring a desire to learn and grow. We're going to be focusing on how to motivate students to want to learn what it is that we're trying to get them to learn. Going back to our model of the learning outcomes being the center focus of all education, we're setting a target of learning outcomes. Now, in the first 3 sessions of this series, we've been focusing on the methods, assessment, and content, and how to utilize those in ways that optimize learning. Today, we're going to change gears. We're going to focus on the left side of this slide, on the relationship between the student and the preceptor. How can the preceptor optimize that relationship to enhance the learning of the student? Preceptors must realize there's a definite reality to student learning. This was expressed by Herbert A. Simon, who received the Nobel Prize for Economics in 1978. And he very insightfully expressed that learning results from what the student does and thinks, and only from what the student does and thinks. He said the teacher can only advance learning by influencing what the student does to learn. Great preceptors don't give students knowledge to drink. They make students thirsty for knowledge. The student needs to desire to attain the knowledge. Another saying that I found applicable is that some students drink from the fountain of knowledge. Other students just gargle. With good precepting, we want to motivate students to have such a thirst for knowledge that they will want to drink vigorously from the fountain of knowledge. Our first principle in this session is that motivation is the driving force behind learning. Susan Ambrose, in her book, How Learning Works, had the following statement: students' motivation generates, directs, and sustains what they do to learn. Motivation is a critical element of learning. Now, when we consider what it takes to motivate a student to learn, this relationship was identified by Elizabeth Barkley in her book, Student Engagement Techniques. What Elizabeth Barkley said was that there's 2 components that affect a student's motivation to learn. The first is whether they value the topic, whether they have an interest in the topic. That's going to influence whether they desire to learn about the topic. The second component is, do they have expectancy of accomplishing the learning outcomes? Do they have confidence that they can actually learn that subject? If we put together the value and the expectancy, if they have an interest in the subject and they expect that they can master the subject, they will have motivation to learn the subject. So this can be viewed as an equation. Value times expectancy equals motivation to learn. I emphasize that it is a product and not a sum. If the value is low, if they don't have much interest in learning the topic, even if they're confident that they can learn the topic, their motivation will be low. Likewise, if they have a strong value, a strong desire to learn the topic, but they don't have confidence that they can actually learn it, their net motivation might be low. So the preceptor has to focus on making sure that the students value what it is he wants them to learn and also has confidence, expectancy that they can accomplish the desired learning. Elizabeth Barkley took this a step further. She broke motivation up into a matrix in which the top axis of the matrix is whether or not students expect to learn. Students expect to learn or do not expect to learn. The matrix has an axis on the left side that's focused on the student's perception of value of the rotation or the value of what it is that the preceptor wants the students to learn. Now, if the student expects to learn and the student values what they're trying to learn, that student is very likely to be motivated to actively engage in learning. However, if the student expects to learn but does not value what it is the preceptor wants them to learn, the student is likely to put in minimal or at least less than optimal effort in learning it because they don't think it's worth their while. If the student does not expect to learn but values what it is they want to learn, there might be a tendency to avoid putting full effort in simply to save face. For example, if the student is asked a question and they realize that the topic of the question is important, but they don't think that they can answer it accurately, they don't have confidence that they understand enough to correctly answer the question, the student might refrain from answering it at all simply to save face so they don't look bad. And lastly, if the student does not expect to learn and does not value what it is they're asked to learn, that's the worst case scenario. That student is likely to resent or resist the learning activities, and this is the type of student that's most likely to develop some type of behavioral problems because they're resistant to whatever the preceptor is asking them to do. So let's ponder a question. What can preceptors do to motivate students to become dedicated patient care providers? If you think about this for very long, you begin to realize that there's not much that the preceptor can do to motivate a student intrinsically. However, if a student encounters only even one patient in which they have a significant impact on that patient, or has one encounter with a physician that's very significant and the physician accepts and appreciates their input, that one episode can totally change a student's attitude from being unmotivated, from seeing little value in what it is we want them to learn, to seeing extreme value because they suddenly realize that they can make a difference. Now, this is difficult because the preceptor can't exactly engineer such interactions. But what the preceptor can do is put the student in a situation of having experiences that set up the potential for that type of a monumental interaction, because it only takes one to totally change a student's attitude about the value of what it is we want them to learn.